maybe. Did you give her Wi-Fi so she could call in an emergency?
Okay, so it's 7:35, we're gonna call this rec meeting to order. Is everybody all set?
I just apologize, I'm eating my dinner.
That's okay. If I had some, I'd eat with you.
Okay.
It's been that kind of day.
Yeah.
I don't wanna be rude, I can't really see Lisa or,
Want to turn
I come
that
over here?
table or turn this table?
Barbara, can you?
Move that table over a little bit, or?
That's okay. So the selectmen, two of the selectmen are here with me tonight. We just want to kind of talk about some things and just kind of air out some situations and talk about how we can make things better. I know that we've had a couple of minor, issues that have come up in the last month or so, but I want to start by saying, and I know I've said this before, but the board completely supports this rec committee, and they are very thankful for everything that each one of you do. When we have issues that, are caused from communication failures, it doesn't mean that anybody's doing anything wrong. And I think that's what's very important to look at and to think about as we look at what could have been done differently. And the board takes some responsibility in that because they haven't given this committee, and I know I said this last time, as much attention as it really needs in regards to job descriptions, policies, and procedures. But they are here tonight to assure you that that's going to change. We have started working on the Town of Acton Rec Director job description, and we want to go over it with you guys as a committee so that you can hear some of the things and so that we can better outline what Chris's responsibilities are as the Rec Director. And what he's going to be responsible for. Additionally, they've made some changes town-wide to money policies and policies as far as how money is handled. And that's going to affect all of the committees and departments, so we kind of want to talk about that. I want to just go backwards briefly and talk about baseball, and first tell you that I've gotten a couple of calls from a couple of parents that have raved about some of the teams and how baseball practice was going, so I want to commend Lisa for liaisoning so far to this point. We appreciate what you've done, and it looks like they're having fun. I've seen some pictures. I tried to stalk some of you on Facebook, but I just want to put the quick conversation out there about the shirts. I've said this to the selectmen. I've said it in public. I've tried to say it to a couple of you individually. There is no fault in anything that happened with the shirts. The way that the selectmen see it is simple. You guys as a group talked about taking sponsors, okay? I watched the clip, I listened to it, you agreed to take sponsors. Let's go out and collect X amount of money for shirts and hats. Great idea. Bridget did a phenomenal job going out and getting those, okay?
We all did.
You all did, sorry. I didn't know where they came from.
Yeah.
I saw 3 from her, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
My apologies.
Yeah.
So you all did a good job, a great job going out and getting those sponsorships. There was never a timeline put on that. So the committee as a whole didn't say, okay, we need to know by such and such date how many sponsors we have. Because Lisa needed that information. She needed to know so that she could order shirts and hats and figure teams out. That conversation didn't happen. Life is busy. You just kind of go about your regular everyday. So people, committee members are still looking for sponsors. In the meantime, you've got a liaison saying, well, I've got games in so many days. I need to dress these kids. She didn't know what was going on. There wasn't good communication. So she went about ordering the jerseys that she thought she needed. So that's all behind us. Everybody has the shirts and hats. You've got the jerseys for next year. I think that you're already going to start talking about maybe changing how your sponsorship works so that you can incorporate those. Nobody did anything wrong. The board only stepped in because it was town money being solicited, and we wanted to make sure the shirts and hat got done. And I know that Carol just showed one of the girls. Does anybody have the shirts or any shirts with them? I do. While we're on film, to say, to give 3 seconds to McKinney's, Dwayne did a great job. Do they look good?
They look great.
They look good?
Yeah, they look
Yeah, the t-shirts?
Yeah, really sharp prints instantly.
He did this, he did this so quickly, and I thought he did a good job. And even after the sponsor money, less the hats and shirts, you still had some money left over.
So these are the girls' shirts,
Oh, look, yep, so they say Acton, good.
and they say the sponsor name on the back?
And he just numbered them randomly?
I think so, yeah.
Yep,
And then these are the senior boys.
awesome. Is that one Dennis's? I'm just kidding. Oh, he's not even here. Oh, perfect. And then Lori Streeter, I think with Carol's help, did some embroidery.
I didn't do anything.
Oh, you didn't end up having to help?
Ordered, 70 hats in a week.
70 hats.
I'm surprised she's still married, but she did a
Oh,
fabulous
look.
job.
That's sharp.
She did a really great job.
So, and that's good. That's a goal that we're all looking for and looking at. So, good job to everybody. All right, so we only are hoping to take up a half hour of your time total because we know you have a regular agenda. So I want to go through some of these job description ideas, and I want to hear from the rest of the committee as far as what they think, so that we can better define the lines of who does what, so that so it doesn't happen. One of the things, as I mentioned, the policy regarding the cash, the selectmen have put a policy in place that says that only bonded employees can collect cash. That means that for your next sport, you can send forms home through the school like you normally have, but the school is going to be instructed not to accept them back, and it's going to be on the registration form. Do not return to the school. School,
That's gonna drop our enrollment at least by half.
I don't understand why we can't put like some sort of a lockbox at the school in the lobby or something where people could drop it in and then a bonded person could empty it.
Yeah, because what's happening is that parents are saying, because we can't figure out where the money has gone. We don't know that if Johnny ever brought it to the school. Did Johnny take it out of the backpack? Did he lose it on the bus? Did he, did it ever make it to the school box? We're not even talking about the rec or the bonded person, because we're not sure that it's making it that far.
Before it gets
The
anywhere.
parents are saying that
They can write a check.
it got it, well, checks are fine. Checks are different. But the cash has to stop because the parents nobody knows where the drop-off is.
So my suggestion would be that we send the forms home like normal, and for every sport, it's required to have a parents' information night where the bonded person comes and collects the money. So that we're still filtering through the school, which is our only way to get stuff to and from the kids, really.
Yeah, no, you can still send it that way, and if you want to have a follow-up night there where the bonded person who's going to be the director, he's going to be required to go and collect that money, then that's fine. But the problem is too many parents are saying that they sent money in with the registration, whether, the school teacher, we can't put that on them. The form is just ending up in the box. We have no idea where it dropped off.
So what if
Did you
we
put
did,
checks only
Yeah,
on the
checks
form?
only or money orders only.
No, money order or check.
No credit cards. No credit cards.
Money order or check only, I mean, that would solve the problem.
According to the school, and that 80% of the registrations that come back don't have money attached to them, and those are the ones that you're having to chase. I mean, I don't know that, that's what the school is telling me, is that 80% don't have money attached, and they're expecting that you'll follow up with them later. And that's a piece that
That's pretty difficult to do.
parents have to take some responsibility. It's no different than when you come in and register your car. If you don't bring something in with you, you're going to have to go and get it. I mean, I don't believe that there's gonna be that many people in Acton that are not gonna allow their kids to play because they won't go to the town hall and sign their child up, or they won't do the night. I mean, that's a great idea, Lisa. Do that night at the school.
If they can't make it to the night, then they come.
I guess we'll have to agree to disagree.
Right.
Because I know what I went through to get the 73 kids this season, and I personally went to children and said, please, please, please.
Right.
And this is after I sent forms home twice through the school, I did a sign-up night here, I did
Yep.
a sign-up night at the variety show, I did everything I could do.
Right, no, and
The race, we
But in
begged some
order-
kids to get one of
In
the...
order to get the kids to sign up, I had to personally beg them, and if we take away sending stuff to and
you
from
make it more
through the
difficult,
school.
they're not gonna-
well, I mean, we're not saying you can't send anything through the school. The school is fine with you sending. But the problem is that we don't have a tracking way of knowing what's getting it back. And we don't want to be that, we can't go up to a parent and say, you might have sent $20 in Johnny's backpack, but we don't have it, pay again. And it's not a responsibility that should be on the school.
Right.
So it's one thing to send them out, but maybe.
The forms back.
But then if we decide to do it that way, then it's gonna be on the rec director that folder, that paper doesn't go in the books or go in the binders until there's payment received. So we're gonna be having them send them back through the school without payment, because the school doesn't wanna be responsible for that money.
that's understandable. I still think we need to have the forms come back through the school. However we decide to deal with the money, I think the forms need to come back.
So if the forms come back, they're coming back without payment, and now we're having to track down parents to
Can
make,
the
to
kids
pay.
pay at their first practice? Like the director goes to the first practice and collects the money that
The only
day or
problem
something?
with, the only problem with that is that if they don't, or they don't have it on them, then, you know what I mean, now you're interrupting
Sure.
practices, and you're interrupting games, and.
And we don't know what shirts to get and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We want all that numbers.
Right, so it just has to be a.
So, yeah, if we just say on the
They don't
form,
want to deal with a check either, is that?
checks only through the school, cash can be paid at the town hall.
You did say the school would accept checks.
Well, I mean, we didn't get into that deep of a conversation. They don't want to be responsible for that piece.
Yeah, I mean,
Wakefield
it-
Rec Department, you have to go on their website and sign your CAPA. And they've got a really good rec program, so it seems to be working out.
That would work
Why
for us
couldn't we
too,
do
but we
that, by
don't
the
have
way?
that option.
Why couldn't we do that?
Well, I don't know.
To pay online?
Yeah.
Those programs cost a lot of money.
Right, we don't have.
Yeah, who's gonna set it up?
The town doesn't have a PayPal account.
Accept credit
When I
cards.
talked to Wayne Robinson, he's the director, you know, they can either pay that way or they come in.
Sure.
You know, they do set
Oh, they
everything
can
up
do it,
for
but
the
who's
school.
gonna-
You know, but if you're gonna pay, you
Yeah.
have to either go into the rec department or here.
Does the town have a PayPal account?
No.
No.
No. I mean, we do take credit cards, we don't take credit cards over the phone, but we take them in person. And remember, we don't, that piece doesn't have to be finalized, and the Board of Selectmen have the final say when it comes to the money piece of it. You guys can, you know, do whatever, you know, they've got time to think about it, and they want to take your input in. We don't have to decide that tonight, you're not doing soccer signups for a little while now, so we can kind of take, you know, go home and absorb that and think about it, and the board will take some of that into consideration.
My other question would be, the concession stand is strictly cash.
So that's the only piece in the policy that they made the exception. So that's, they did do that.
To be one way or the other.
Well,
Because this is my point. I could go to the concession stand and spend $20. To any one of us. Or I can give $20 to any one of us to sign my kid up for sports. $20 is $20, money is money.
right.
So, I mean, if it's the bonded person, I'm assuming that it's because we want to have one person responsible for what's happening with that money.
Right.
Because, you know, whatever.
And if anything happens, I mean, they have to be bonded or to be covered,
Person
right?
responsible, right.
Well, right, the insurance, our insurance won't cover if the person, like, so if there was a theft, you know, we'll use my position, for example, if I'm not bonded, your insurance company won't pay for whatever the theft was. That's why they have to be bonded. So if someone steals, it's, you know, what I mean, there's no coverage unless they're bonded.
So if somebody steals $50 that they made at the concession stand that day,
Right. I mean, right, and the board would have to decide, and that's the other piece with the concessions, is that, you know, are there checks and balances, and how many people, you know, so we'll use baseball, for example, because I know Carol's getting ready to start, so she's gone out and spent X amount of money, I didn't open the attachment, but let's just say she spent $200, so she's gonna be reimbursed for that, she has receipts, that's exactly what the auditor wants to see. So now, she's starting with zero, because the money that she's paying, that she's getting reimbursed, she's already paid out of her own pocket, so you need some sort, $25 of startup money, you're gonna need something to be able to make change, and then, are there always two people in the concession stand?
No. There's never been.
never.
And what
it's
I
hard to get two
did,
volunteers, to be
and what I
honest.
did was, because I've had one day of selling, is that I just went to my bank and got like $25 in change and put a, you know,
IOU.
in there
Yep.
or whatever, and then when the sale was over, I just took that $25 back out.
Right.
I cleared like $48 that day.
It's usually minimal, and that's why they put that one thing, well, that one exception in there. Unfortunately, there are some areas that are just going to be gray. I mean, in an ideal world, there'd be two people, there'd be checks and balances, so that, let's just say Carol is running the concession, then one of the coaches would, you know, count down the drawer, like Sarah and I do, you count it down before you start, she does the sales, at the end, they count it down, they both agree that she had a $48 profit, and that gets turned over the next day, so.
We did kind of do that, like when I was.
With basketball?
With the one day that I've
Oh,
done the
okay.
concession
Yep.
stand so far.
Yep.
You know, where somebody else counted it with me in the beginning and the end.
Right, just like you and I do with Girl Scouts. I mean, that's the easiest way. Grab any other member of the rec, and just have them sign off. Hey, just verify this $25 here, this is the 48 I'm turning over. I mean, there are some things that we're not going to, in bonding, is really for larger, it's for larger amounts. They're gonna have to have some flexibility on things like on the concessions. Because based on the amount that you make, the best we can do is we can't force, we don't wanna make the director be at every, countdown at every day. Any of you as rec committee members should be able to do that. So that's another policy that we really need to look at writing. So back to his or her job description, his oversees and schedules field maintenance, oversees scheduling of all games and events with the assistance of the event liaison, handles all monies and turns over to the tax collector or treasurer within 3 days per town policies, signs off and approves all bills prior to purchase. That's something that the board requires in all departments. Sarah may have the authority to order from Staples, but the bill doesn't get paid unless I sign it, no different than the road commissioners. It's just getting 2 sets of eyes on everything to make sure that it's been approved. Completes check requests as needed. This is something, and I kind of joked with Chris about that Michelle and I will appreciate getting him trained to do this, and that's why we take some responsibility in not telling him this stuff before. But, when you guys need something, you want to place an order, every other department goes through, there's a policy. He has to fill out a check request, he has to get it signed off, he has to fill out a credit card authorization form if it's something that has to be ordered through a debit card. It puts a little more work on him and, kind of lightens the load for the town hall staff. Communicates with the town administrator as to the meeting dates and times per town policy. The board is looking at making a policy right now. Under freedom of information, you have to post it for 7 days. They're gonna make a policy that says 10 days. And the idea behind that is to give me essentially 3 days with APAT and cable to get it scheduled. Because if you send me a message on, today at 7 o'clock saying that we want to have another meeting next Thursday at 7 o'clock, that's 7 days, assuming I can drop everything and get it posted on the website, on the cable, get, APAT there, everywhere that it needs to go. So we need a little bit of flexibility, so they're going to make that 10 days. Prepare the yearly committee budget with the advice of the rec committee, promote activities within the town of Acton, prepare a report to be submitted annually by the town, for the town report, something that we haven't done in the past. The rec doesn't usually, or hasn't these last many years, hasn't put anything in the town report, so we think that would be beneficial, a great piece of history. It'll have the whole committee's names on it, you guys will all review it, but essentially the person that's receiving the stipend is going to be responsible for putting that together. So those are some of the ones that the board has come up with just since the last week or so. We are looking for suggestions from you guys as to other things that you think we need clarity as far as whose job it is or things that we think that position may need to be responsible for, so that we can kind of jot them down and take them back to the full board next week to discuss further. Chris, let's start with you, put you on the spot. What other things, as a rec director, do you feel like that you do or that you're responsible for that maybe the rest of the committee doesn't know or realize, so that we can list it out? Yes. Outside of the things I've already mentioned. Anything jump out?
Not really.
So when so we know that we have to sort out how the registration forms are gonna come back. That's agreed upon. So all of those forms need to come back to one person, right? Do we all agree on that? From there, the rec director is going to copy and make books, and a good point with Lori. Are they getting new binders every sport? No.
Started that.
I'm sorry?
I started the binder thing.
Okay.
Years back.
So just walk me through. So baseball, the registration forms came into the school, some came here. For the most part, the director got most of them, right?
No, Bridget did.
Okay, so Bridget got most of them here and at the school. We know that other people handled some, because I had 2 coaches tell us that they gave, or I've had parents tell me that they gave them to individual coaches. So when you guys get forms, you turn them all over to Chris or Bridget?
Like how we do it now?
Yes, how did you handle it?
So Bridget collected all the forms, except for I think 3 that I collected while I mistakenly thought she was on vacation.
Yep.
And, so she gave me all the forms, and then I made copies of everything, and then I gave her back the originals. And I made copies, I made a copy for myself as the liaison, and a copy for each coach.
Okay.
And I got 2 forms the first day of their practice.
From,
Two people that signed up late.
from parents.
Yeah, and those are the two I brought up to you because I just put them in the binder and,
And that's one of the things, I know that, well, you were a coach too, you're a coach now, yeah. So, and that's one of the things, and I know you're short on coaches, so we certainly appreciate you stepping up, but that was one of the good things, or one of the things about not having the liaison be the coach, because in an ideal world, and if Lisa can't do it, this is gonna fall back on Chris, if she is coaching, so we really want somebody there at the first practice. So if Lisa's the coach and she's the liaison, we can't expect her to do that. So Chris would show up in that case, and he would make sure, he'd be there, Lori, in case somebody turned over any extra forms, because that shouldn't be on you as a coach.
Right.
We have coaches that coach for us that aren't even on the rec committee. They certainly shouldn't be handling that.
Right.
So, you know, I mean, that's something, a piece that we need to make sure gets filled in, so that if the liaison does decide to coach, we can get those forms, because although you bank on the money for your revenues, it's not about that, it's more an insurance piece. We have to make sure that if anything happens to any of those kids, that we have a signed waiver from their parents, so that's very important. And I did send, when we realized that different people had forms and that the liaison not the liaison, sorry, Lisa, that the Whitman family didn't have all of them, I pulled somebody that wasn't involved at all. I didn't pull the Whitmans, because they had all the originals. I didn't pull the liaison. I chose the chair to go to each team, each game, and do a head count, because we had to have the insurance forms. So,
I think that in the future, if you're gonna do something like that, like either an email or a text
Yeah.
or something to the coaches, just to give them a heads up, so that, because some of the coaches don't even know John or who he is, you know? And so they were like, who is this guy? Why is he looking at this book? Is it okay to show it to them?
Yeah.
You know, there's,
It
you
didn't
know.
really happen, it only happened in one. Every other coach was perfect.
No, but they still ask the question after, though.
yeah. they
But
have to-
maybe not of you. I just think
And you have
some
to
communication.
deal with we've got pertinent information of people's allergies and people's medications and everything else, and that's not something to fool around with.
yeah, no, point completely taken. We could have sent out something to everybody. It was a last-minute decision that I made based on the amount of missing registration forms that we had. I was trying to reach the coaches to figure out how many kids were on each team, trying to get sizes. I had 2 different coaches bring me forms that didn't come from you or you, so it was more important to do a head count immediately, and that's why I sent him out. I trust that Jonathan introduced himself and said who he was, but point well taken, and if we decide to do that again, we'll pass it along. But nevertheless, I mean, if he's the chair, you know, I would hope that you guys would support and know that that came from this Board of Selectmen. I mean, that was their instruction to make sure that that happened.
But I do have to say, as the liaison, that felt really crappy. Like you didn't let me know that that was happening. It felt like you were saying, I don't trust what you've done.
Yeah.
And we're gonna put John on it. So a simple email, just something's wrong, we missed something, this is what's gonna happen. Because, and parents did look to me like, well, apparently you don't know what you're doing.
Well, I'd like to make a comment also.
Before you start any sport, before you let any of those kids on the field anyhow,
I'm sorry?
shouldn't you have somebody come out and check before you let the kids on the
That's kind of
field?
what I do. Like, I count every registration form 100,000 times, and there were people that said, I'm gonna sign my kid up, and I'm gonna sign my kid up, and I'm gonna sign my kid up, and they didn't come, and I thought, well, they gave up on it. And that's how I found out that Lori ended up with more registrations, because they said, well, eventually they did come. It was like, what, your 3rd practice or something? It wasn't your first practice, was it?
No, they came at the first practice. But
And they didn't turn the papers in until the 3rd.
The first practice, they turned the papers in. So I put them into my book. It wasn't until I came up here when you asked how many kids were on the team.
For shirts, right.
For shirts.
And that's when we
I
realized that
said,
she had a
"Oh, we
different number
probably
than that."
should've-" Well, because you were in the office and you were saying that Bridget was bringing the papers up for all the things, and then I got home and I was like, oh, well, if she needs a copy of those for the town hall, then I made a copy at my house and I brought them up to you. So I took them out of my book, but, I mean, I knew that in our book that we have to have
And so that's something that we should add.
Registration form?
Yeah, no, and I
Coaches
completely agree with you
orientation.
100%. I mean, and I will take the responsibility of that. We should have communicated better. It wasn't something, I didn't reach out to Chris and tell him I was gonna do it. I didn't reach out to you, you're right. I spoke to the board, we had numbers, we were balancing books, and the decision was send somebody out there to count. It's kind of like, when an auditor walks in my office, you get no, it wasn't about anybody individually, it was an insurance piece, but I completely understand how you would have taken that and how that felt, and I apologize, and we will certainly make sure that we approach that differently if the board decides to do it again. So well taken, thank you.
Can I comment on it, please?
Of course.
In the future, as this gets bigger, there's gonna be more coaches for the teams that don't know maybe almost none of us, or only some of us. And if they have all the information of their kids, I'd like to think when someone says, I'd like to see all your information of the kids in your team, they would say, no, I'm not going to turn that over to you.
Right.
They need to know ahead of time who that person may or may not be. In this case, we kind of all know each other.
Right.
But as it gets bigger, there may be a time where someone, Jimmy's coaching the team and he doesn't know me personally or someone on the rec board and he's got all those kids' information. I don't want my kids' information given to anybody that they don't know exactly who it is.
And I agree with you 100%.
This time is different because we're all small still, and we all know each other, so to speak, but...
Right, but, and I agree with you, and I certainly could understand if one of the coaches or somebody decided not to give the book based on that reason. You know what I mean? But that's not what happened, and that's, that wasn't the situation at all. But, again, I take responsibility, and I think the board will consider that, but as long as you keep saying that, we're small and we know one another, if you know the chairman is there specifically telling you that the town administrator is asking for insurance purposes that he be able to verify the number of kids on your team, he wasn't taking the book home with him, he wasn't leaving the field, you kind of got to assume that's accurate.
You can assume anything, but when you tell us to go by rules and checks and balances, and then you don't do it, then how do we know what to do?
So what, I guess, so the chair shows up and he essentially says, the town administrator wants me for insurance purposes.
No, he said, I need to look at your book.
No, that's not true.
Go ahead, John.
It isn't true. Well, then why did you say, then tell Jen to call me?
That, because I didn't feel comfortable turning over that
Because I
information.
said, Jen sent it down, and the answer was,
Doesn't matter.
tell
If
Jen
Chris
to call
showed up
me.
and Chris said, I need to look at your book, or the liaison showed up and said, I need to look at your book, I would
Not-
have been
not the
perfectly
chairman.
fine.
He's a committee member, you should be working together, he has nothing, should have nothing to hide, and he has nothing that he should want.
It's not about nothing to hide,
You should be
it's,
working together. If you
we all should be working together, that's right.
Doesn't work.
So maybe you didn't hear, you didn't hear the word, maybe it wasn't loud enough, we'll assume the insurance and the head count was or wasn't said. I mean, we're not gonna go back and forth, I mean, Jonathan says he said it, you said that you were busy because you were working on your first practice, we don't need to go back and forth, that's how it was handled, we know that we need to make some corrections, we've been very clear that we need to pre-tell at least the liaison, but he was sent down there on behalf of the board, and he was asked to say for insurance purposes. All of the other coaches verified that that was what was said. It could have been different with yours, I'm not gonna question that, but nevertheless, he was only doing what the board asked him to make sure that we had a paper on every kid, and he wouldn't have had to do that if we didn't have random coaches coming at the last minute with papers. Okay? We have to address that differently, we're clear on that. I'm taking some responsibility, but we have to, everybody, we will make sure that's worded differently.
So then, in other words, anytime anyone on the board's asked to do something from one of you guys and no one else knows, then we're supposed to just take that for face value.
Didn't we just say that you wanted her to send an email? I mean,
Well,
that's what we're working on here, trying to set
Okay.
up things so that,
The board, myself included, will do a better job of communicating with the liaison and with the chair. But sometimes, Lori, when you're trying to figure out what the missing link is, you don't tell everybody is not told in advance what's going on. Because there was one goal. We have X amount of kids that should have paid, we have X amount of kids that are exempt, we have this much money that has been collected. We need to figure out if, for insurance purposes and budgeting purposes, where we're at. You don't tell everybody on the committee. You send the chairman out, you tell him that the town administrator specifically gave him the instruction to do that. Even if this committee is split with split with people, I think that everybody sitting here in this room knows that Jonathan Botel is honest and it would not lie about something like that. Okay, it could have been handled differently. I'm gonna say it for the 5th time, but that's how it happened, and that's why it happened that way, so it was just one person. Next time, one of the board members will go out and do it themselves if we come to that situation, so you don't have to worry about it. Or we'll send an email giving a heads up. Fair? So if we ever get in that situation where you have to, don't want anybody involved, one of you will just go down directly. And the committee knows if a board member shows up, you need to turn over the book. Yes?
Yeah.
They're not gonna show up. I mean, we're not gonna get to that. It was a minor thing. Insurance is huge. I mean, if you could just sit through some of our walkthroughs with these insurance companies as a municipality, you know what I mean? Every committee and board, especially little kids and sports and balls, it was nothing about anybody. We just wanted to make sure that we had forms.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion, I think sending one of you guys down, or everyone knows who Chris is. So for comfortability and just record-wise, as in medical, as like we've been talking about, if Chris went down, or the liaison, or one of you guys, that'd be understandable, because then the parents are gonna be very, very comfortable, because they're gonna know, because everyone knows who Lisa is, they know she's the
But
liaison.
until we balance the books, we had to pick an outside source.
Can I just say, like, Chris is the one that the board had the expectation that was collecting the money all along. And there was, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
what you thought. It wasn't communicated, and I'm not blaming Chris, but I'm saying that's what the perception was, is that Chris is the one that was supposed to be collecting the money. So when there is money that's unaccounted for, you're not gonna ask the person that was supposed to be collecting it all along to go verify anything. You're gonna take an outside. I understand that
Right,
piece.
and you understand the piece that we didn't even tell him that I was sending Chris down, did I?
I think for the past 2 years, like, I've just always collected.
I'm just saying, do you know what I mean? I mean, I want you guys to hear the other side too. He wasn't even told that I was sending Chris down to count sheets and heads, you know what I mean?
You sent John.
He was, sent John, I'm sorry. Chris wasn't told. I mean, he's the chair. He was
And I think that's another piece to this, is that, there's always been, Bridget just said it herself, she's the one that's always collected it. She's not the bonded individual.
And not always, but, that's where these rules come intact with Chris. Like, when he took this position over, there was nothing written down in rules. It was just hearsay, this is what you do.
Accepting that Jen did come to a meeting and said the only person that can handle money is the bonded individual, Chris.
Right. And when you've done your signups in the past, you've done them here, so the school really was the only missing piece. And again, we have time to sort that out before soccer, you know what I mean? Take it in, think about it. But I just want us to get past the whole shirts and baseball issue, because you guys are doing phenomenal there, and the whole sending Jonathan down. So I wanted to be full clarity as to why it happened that way, what the thought behind it was.
But you have to understand, going back to the shirts thing, and I'm not trying to move backwards at all, okay, but considering that my family and I reimbursed for those jerseys, I think I have a right to say,
Absolutely.
what led to those jerseys being ordered. Okay, I'm still extremely upset about this. I talked to John about it, I've talked to Chris about it, but Lisa and I work together because she's my sister, okay? And I will always have her back. We had parents, we had coaches. I had a coach try to give me a large sum of cash to order shirts for their kids, because they said, we are not going to step on the field against a team with uniforms without so much as a shirt. Lisa and Lori went to the gym and went through all the jerseys that we had from years past to try to find shirts to get our teams by while we sorted out the t-shirt thing. They were not jerseys for the older kids. So I reached out, I sent John a message. He was extremely busy with Odyssey of the Mind, missed my message, asking him to call. Understandable, he apologized. I tried to call Chris. didn't get a call back. He apologized. I understand that. But time is going by, and we hadn't ordered the t-shirts. At a rec meeting, we were told it takes 2 to 3 weeks, once you place your order, to get the t-shirts. We were a couple weeks into the season. So we kind of made the decision, being weeks away from our next meeting, and not being able to call a meeting. I mean, you saw what we went through trying to get this meeting. We made the decision to use those jerseys for the little kids and to go ahead and order jerseys for the 2 older kids that we didn't have existing jerseys for. It was already approved for the budget for next year, so it's not like they were going to be wasted. It wasn't the right choice, and I understand that. But the way that we got blasted after the fact was not okay.
Got blasted by
Like we were rogue, like we thought we could do whatever we wanted, you know? I mean, that...
Office.
John sent the email and said, you know, the email he sent, and I told him this, you know, face to face, that I was very offended by that. You know, and that's why, when I read that email at work, I immediately called my dad and said, get your butt in that town hall and write a check for those jerseys. Because I don't want that on my head, that, you know, we were acting on our own without the approval of the committee, or that we did something wrong. You know, we didn't.
So, just so I can understand, so you believe that so the shirts didn't get ordered because you weren't getting return calls? So who was supposed to order so let's go back to who was
supposed to order the t-shirts?
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second.
That's why I was trying to get a hold of everybody.
I thought the commissioner was supposed to, but
Okay, so
that's what he did in the past.
The director or the commissioner?
I mean, the director.
Who's the
sorry.
commissioner?
The
Director. She meant director, she used the wrong word.
So, all right,
That's who
so,
I always thought should have ordered.
He ordered them in the past.
Yeah.
so did we order shirts for basketball?
No.
No.
When's the last sport that we ordered?
Baseball last year.
Which, were you guys all on the committee then?
Yes, no.
Well, I was.
Only her.
Who was on the committee with you guys baseball last year? Okay. So there was 4 of you, and essentially you guys ordered the shirts. So you didn't have the conversation about who was supposed to order it? Is that fair?
And last year, the t-shirts, we had sponsors, but the t-shirts, the letter said that the sponsor's name would be on the t-shirt last year, and it wasn't. So this isn't the first year that...
There's no on the t-shirts.
No, they weren't. Molly still wears hers. There's no sponsors.
on the back.
And I got a call from a sponsor, that's how that came up. But
Right.
go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think the reason this came about, it's almost like a perfect storm of mishap, because Chris and Bridget couldn't make it to the last meeting where we made this whole decision on the shirts.
Did anybody tell them to order them?
I emailed the meeting minutes, but to them, but...
So they weren't at the meeting to be able to hear that kind of decision. So that's where I think the first point of failure is. I completely understand Carol's frustration with where she was, and, you know, you've got this team that's got, you know, effectively no shirts and is going to be going in rags. I understand that.
Yeah.
And I really do understand where you're coming
And the way that people were coming at her as the liaison, like, what kind of a program are you running? Like, I should have put my kid in Sanford. If I hear that one more time, my head's gonna explode.
Embarrassing.
Parents saying that?
Yes, they're saying a lot of criticisms. You don't understand the criticism that we get as the liaison.
Or as coaches.
Okay, first of all, did they turn their registration form on in time?
Yep, yeah.
Okay.
The ones that-
I think the
The
problem-
parents that are complaining have done everything right. They put their registration form in, they paid their money, they've come to their practices, they're doing everything, and they feel like they're not getting what they were promised.
And what it feels like as the liaison, when you have parents coming at you and nobody will return your phone call, it feels like you've been hung out to dry by your director and your committee. That's what it feels like. I went through it with basketball. She's gone through it with baseball. It's not okay.
Shouldn't they be directed right to him?
If you don't get calls or texts
Okay, so
back,
it's
what
been-
do you
all right.
do?
No, I didn't mean you. I meant the person speaking with you about the issue. Should it be directed
Do you
to
mean like the
director?
parent complaining about the program?
That should go,
Should that be handled by the liaison who's
Yeah.
I
building
think
the
it should.
program?
That's the chain of command we set up.
So I guess, so here's the piece, not to put you on the spot. So, I mean, so Chris, they're saying that you don't return their phone calls.
Carol, about 3 times a week during basketball, so I don't know what that's going on.
So more in baseball, you just had a harder time?
I did in the beginning have a hard time. Recently, it's gotten much better.
Okay.
But, I'll be honest, Chris and I had to have a conversation because, what's that, Chris?
What?
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
What conversation?
Remember we had a conversation when you came to get your
yeah.
baseball bag? And I said, you know, I'm calling you, you're not calling me back. I tried texting you, you're not texting me back. I tried email, I've tried every form of communication that I have, and you're not getting back to me. And trust me, I know what it's like to have a busy life.
What's the response, Chris? Is she trying to reach out to you, or you?
She probably tried reaching out 2 times before, I never got any.
I can show you
No,
the
and you don't have
proof
to, I'm just trying to sort it out.
that is
in my mind.
inaccurate.
If I can just come back to the email part, I'm really sorry if it did upset, because it wasn't meant to be personal anyway, and I think that if you reread it now, the email actually starts out saying, this is not pointing fingers, this is not pointing blame at anybody, but and it wasn't even saying that what you did was essentially wrong, but what we had to do is say, if we're moving forward, because it's exactly the same issue we had way back in the beginning when we set all this up, that the committee decides something, and then something else gets changed. And it wasn't especially to have a go at what you'd done, because I understand the frustration that you wanted to get the kids in shirts, and that's all it came from. It's not from you desperately wanting to have jerseys, obviously. It's all about the kids.
the board knows that, right.
But it was more about a policy of, you know, this is what we must do moving forward, being that if the board says something, we have to carry what, you know, the committee decides as a group together.
The thing that was happening, though, is that weeks were going by, and we hadn't even ordered the shirts.
I get it.
And
Like,
the other-
it's a
the
short
other-
season, it's a 6-week season.
The
When you're
other
2 weeks
concern
into
about
it.
that is that at that point, when we were ordering those shirts, I was under the impression that our account was quite possibly in the negative.
Sure.
So how in the hell are we gonna order shirts for an entire baseball program?
Sponsors.
So
Even with the sponsors, we were being told that the account was still just barely in the positive.
So after the Friday that you spoke with the treasurer, and between the Tuesday, I think when those shorts were ordered, 3 more sponsors were posted. And if you add that 275, multiply that 275 times 3, we did the math well in advance. And I tried, and I agree with you, Carol. I mean, I hear what you're saying as far as the jersey piece. I still think, and I hear it's miscommunication, because I know how good of people you are, and I know how good of people they are. And I guess what we have to do is we have to put something on both sides. So if the liaison sends a text, a call, or message to the director and doesn't get a response, we think it's fair, 48 hours?
Sometimes you need a response that day.
Then we're gonna have to put something in there that you call the town administrator. You know what I mean? And then we will start documenting and dealing with a different piece if that's the case. You know what I mean? We're gonna have to put something in there. We can't say that it's all him, that it's all you. You know what I mean? We can't go backwards, but if communication is issue, then we're gonna have to put something in there. Just like if the director says, listen, I reached out to the liaison 3 times because I'm missing these kids, then you know what I mean? 48 hours, 72 hours, and you guys decide what you think is a fair amount of time. Let's put it in writing, and then just stop trying to call him. Call me. Call me. My personal cell phone is on the front door of this building because of general assistance. You call me if they don't reply. If she doesn't get back to you in a decent amount of hour, I'll handle it. You know what I mean? We have to get past these things, and the only way we're going to is if we put time frames. Because I hear your frustration, and we should have ordered them earlier. I don't know why it didn't happen. I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure there was communication about it, and we could sit here and listen to the whole other side, because I know that they are good people, and there was a reason they didn't order those shirts. But the best thing we can.
The reason why that we didn't order the shirts?
Yes.
First of all, we didn't even get how many of the kids and all that stuff. That was no communication.
Nobody got that.
Nobody got that. So even if it's in the minutes, it's communication.
Okay.
It's communication with everybody. It's like.
So that's another expectation, though. If I weren't at this meeting, it's my responsibility to either watch the video or read my minutes. It's responsibility.
And like with the shirts being ordered too, in those minutes, as well as everybody knew with the sponsors and the sponsors that we handed out, it says on our sponsor form, you get, for $275, you get this on your shirt, you get this on your hat, you get that.
That's 100% correct,
Excuse me
but.
one second.
Oh, okay.
I felt very hurt because I reached out to 3 sponsors, and I did say I was new to this town, and I communicated with them, I made friendships with them, 3 different businesses, and for, say, the shirts get made, and then I get on my end a text message from you saying, just blame it on me because that can't happen, that can't happen.
Right, because-
All the committee,
okay.
like, and I get it, the committee and the funds and everything, but as that kept, like, happening, I'm like, what do we do? What do we do?
And that's what happened last year during baseball, when Lisa was the one that got the sponsors and the shirt, names didn't go on the shirt.
And I didn't get the photos to go back to the sponsors either. That's
they were
also
promised.
promised on that sheet. Which also, that sheet that I gave you, Bridget, I told you to adjust it because I didn't want you to use the same one that I used last year. And you didn't, you chose not to.
Adjusted how?
I said, take my name off there, take my contact information off there, and you need to reword it to however you want it to be, because I was no longer doing sponsors, because I got burnt out doing that last year. And you
Because nothing
chose
was
not
promised.
to, you left my name and my contact information on there, so it looks like I'm the one promising something to people that I wanted nothing to do with.
And there should definitely be a cutoff date for sponsors, so this doesn't
It
happen.
has to be before the season starts.
It should, I mean,
Also your forms.
So how about if,
money.
if all forms, I mean, if all forms that, you know, that the rec committee, the rec committee has to support the form and, but they'll be signed from the director. I mean, they'll, you know what I mean, whether, so you guys make an agreement to accept sponsors for soccer, you know, by June 15th or whatever day you pick. The letter gets drafted, or last year's, or the last sport gets corrected, or gets updated, not corrected, updated. The director's the one whose information should be on there. I mean, he's getting the stipend, he's ultimately responsible, so it goes back to him. So you have one contact. Does that make sense? Yep. Chris, Bridget? So have one person and it all goes back to you.
well, and then we all voted as a chair, I mean, as a committee, to go with uniforms next year, new uniforms, so we're not gonna be buying t-shirts anymore.
Well, as long as our budget goes
So,
through.
yeah, if our budget goes through, that's right.
So banners maybe? I mean, if you need, you
Yeah.
can, you know, banners are always a
I
good
did
idea.
look, like, I did start looking already at banners that can be hung up through Vistaprint. They're fairly inexpensive.
And
and
we
you
still
can
do hats even.
do a big one, you know, list all the sponsors, and you can get the huge banner, you know, that goes up and down, like, thanks to our sponsors, list all their names, and it's under $200. You know, and you can hang that up behind your home plate.
One of the meetings was banners and hats. and
Yeah,
The hats used to have the names on them.
yeah. The shirt's never.
And, yeah, and that was just something that, you know, like the wording, and, you know, and maybe, you know, maybe the committee decided they weren't gonna do it that way, and the form should have been updated, and just like everything, you know, we're human.
Yeah.
I ran this public hearing for tonight at 7.
Right.
You know, the best thing I can do is go before the selectmen and the public and say, look, I made a mistake, you know? I mean, we're human, we make mistakes, we just have to communicate better.
And that's the thing that's, you know, that's the only thing that any of us want, is communication.
I know.
That's all we want. It's very frustrating. I mean, we all lead busy lives, you know?
Absolutely. What is on your agenda for tonight?
Treasurer's report,
And so that treasurer's report, I want to really look at that position.
Sure, I
It's an
figured it might be.
impossible task, because nobody has ever, this year, once told me when money has been spent. So how do you keep track of an account?
So why don't we put that under the directors, if he has to sign off on the
He
checks
could
and
give the
bills.
committee a report every month.
If the director has to sign off on all the bills, he's gonna be seeing the treasurer on a regular basis, he has to turn in the money, so he can obtain a monthly report of all expenses and revenues to be presented to each, I'm gonna say selectmen's meeting, each rec meeting.
So would that be dissolving our treasurer's position?
That's up to you guys, I mean, how do you feel about it?
That's more than acceptable, you know?
What do you think, Chris?
Personally have no desire to be the treasurer after,
I mean,
like,
you don't.
I'm not doing it.
I mean, we have a town treasurer, so as much
Yeah,
as,
it's an
as much
impossible.
as you need the position, you really don't, because you have the town treasurer that it has to go through anyways, and.
But the thing is the reason that we created the position was so that we always, the idea was, at any given moment, there's somebody on the committee that can say, we have X number of dollars.
Right.
That was the reason, and Michelle's fabulous about giving reports. When you, like, I email her a day, maybe 2 days, you know, I get the reports, but it's just, you get the report, and then her and I have to go back and forth. What's this? What was this? Why this? Why that? And it's always 5, 6, 7 emails back and forth.
Right.
You know, where there should be, like, it should be, if you were gonna have a treasurer, that anytime anybody spent money out of that account, that treasurer was notified, so they could immediately
Right.
take it off the spreadsheet.
So by moving that responsibility to the director, I mean, the checks and balances are gonna be with the director and the treasurer. So if he has, an expense list of, you know, if he has an expense balance in his account of $4,000 and he knows that he signed off on a concessions bill of 200, then he should be making a paper note and.
So that at any given moment, he can say,
Right.
we have this much money.
Right.
You know, that was the point of the position, so that anybody on the committee could know at any time, you know, with just a phone call or an email, how much money was there.
Is that something, Chris? I mean, and as much as, I mean, there is a he is the rec director, let's not get that wrong, but at the same time, we don't want to say, okay, we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. I mean, he's getting a stipend every 3 months, that is,
Right.
you know what I mean? We're not here to overload them and give them everything. We
But
need
if
to
it is
spread
going to
that.
still be a position, then something needs to be put in place that, like, because really, Chris is the only one that can spend money,
Well, and the board, right, and the,
then he, you know, should let
Yes.
the treasurer know if he does.
right.
You know what I
And
mean?
he will have to, as will, we all will have to, as department heads, go through a new process to spend money.
Yeah.
So, all right, so that's the treasurer piece. So do you have a treasurer's report? What else is on, I didn't mean for you to get into the.
Yeah, no.
I just want to know generically what was on
Go
your
down.
agenda.
Talk
Sorry,
about
Carol.
the rec field wetland delineation. Talk about the electrical work in the shack and the lighting. Talk about the Acton Pride Day, soccer.
And I'm sorry, I got back to you from Maine Municipal as far as their concerns?
We got,
Friday?
we went back and forth, and they just wanted to know about the height of the inflatables, and I came back to you, and I hadn't heard since then. I was just waiting to hear on that point.
You might want to follow up with me on that.
Okay.
And I think that I heard that my department gets first dibs
Dibs,
that. which,
yeah. You can choose whichever one you want to work
Well,
on.
he said that you guys were asking town departments to run certain things.
Yes.
Friday, so I'm like, can I at least have, you know, first dibs?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm gonna take dunk tank.
They won't let us do a dunk tank.
They did say that. They tell us that every year at Chaplain Community Day too, but
We could still do it.
it's one of those.
We'll have
I don't wanna know.
EMT
Knees
or an
and
RN
backs,
on
apparently.
standby.
So you have some of the, so is that the last item?
Just wanted to discuss about the frequency of meetings on the run-up to Pride Day, because obviously there's a lot of work and only 2 months to do it, and date the next meeting. It's pretty much
And
it.
have you reached out to other departments and committees? Do they know?
Not yet, because I wanted to make sure of what we could do
Right.
first, and I was hoping we'd hear on that today, but...
Yeah, so, well, based on her last
Pretty
email,
much everything.
because she told you what you couldn't do, so
Yeah.
assume everything else is fine.
All right, okay.
And then, I mean, if she wanted heights, and if she wanted measurements, that's fine. That's something we can work out, but, I mean, does the committee feel like we can continue to work together and get through these? I mean, do we feel like that they are really just communication issues, some communication issues that we have to sort out, and that, I mean, you know,
Well, I
realize
know.
that this side has done a majority of the talking, just give me a second, but, I mean, we all agree that, I mean, Bridget and Chris's heart is in this, and they are doing a lot for this town. Nobody's here to dispute that. I can tell by looking at Bridget's face that she's feeling, you know, and she shouldn't, none of you should feel like that, because life's just busy. It doesn't make it okay, and it doesn't make the communication issues okay, but, I mean, I need to know that you guys want to, A, work with each other, and that we feel like we can.
Well, I ran into problems during basketball with Bridget and Chris both at the beginning, you know, and we worked it out. And we worked together through that sport. So, you know, the second half or the last third of the season, we worked very well together. You know, Bridget and I did the ceremony at the end together. You know, Chris and I communicated almost daily on our lunch breaks and after work and, you know, during commutes, and we worked well together, you know, but I don't see that in baseball, and I'm very disappointed. But I know we can move past it because it's happened before. You know, I mean, we've moved past it before. We worked together on the ice rink fine. We did move past it.
You and Lisa are totally two different people, and that's fine, but I'll give my word in the fact that I felt like I was stepping on your toes, and I always want to help. That's how I felt like with you.
Yeah.
And with Lisa, I kind of like backed off, but I wasn't sure if I backed off too much, and then I kept asking, do you need help, do you need help, do you need help? And I just feel like you guys are totally two different people, so it's, I don't know if I went wrong, or, you know,
You didn't go wrong. My only concerns that I've had, because until all of this, the reason for you guys being here, until that, I felt like what I was doing well. So I was getting games, I was putting teams together, I was coordinating the craziness of 6 teams in one field for practices, and I was coordinating that well, and then all of a sudden, we got totally shafted on the field. It's still not ready. I don't know how we move forward from that.
What's wrong with the field? Let's stop there for a second.
It's not really the field, it's the parking lot.
Okay, what's wrong with the parking lot?
It's wet.
Not parking.
Muddy.
The problem is,
So it's not that somebody's not doing
No,
something,
it's
okay.
just
I gotta
like
understand.
that.
So what do we need to fix it?
a
Where's
lot.
my road guys? Where's that?
Money.
He's downstairs at the planning board.
Scraping
Money
back
that we
about 3
don't
feet.
have.
Well, okay, well.
Gravel, I'm talking, I think Chris has talked to
Town property,
Langley,
there are
and I've
ways
talked to
around.
Dave Langley. We've both talked to Dave Langley.
Like
I think
crushed
the
stone?
short term is some good gravel.
Well, no, well, kinda, there's more things to a short-term thing. There's a culvert that comes underneath the driveway.
Yeah, we can't fix that now
Well,
from
no,
baseball.
it's fine, but for some reason it dead-ended on the, there's a little bump out, it dead-ended, so it doesn't go into the spillway, into the retention pond.
Was it blocked?
No, it just was never done properly.
Okay. So how can we fix it? I mean, because it's the end of May, I'm hoping it's drying
I
up.
could get Dave down there and get Dave to dig it out and get we'll need some gravel, riffraff to put into the culvert.
So is the board okay with me checking with the treasurer to see if I can spend crushed stone out of a different account? I mean, if it's town property. Right. Do you know what I mean? It shouldn't have to come out of the rec.
Yeah, Chris was saying, who ended up there today, and they nearly got
Well,
stuck?
Brian from, the property maintenance guy.
Oh, yeah,
He was in there.
Seacoast.
Yeah, he almost got stuck yesterday.
So when, Lisa, what is today, Thursday? When is your next practice or game?
Tomorrow.
Awesome.
We have practice every single night of the week, at least
Just the
one.
rain.
And games and,
It's supposed to rain
And
tomorrow?
there's supposed to be a school game up at the field tomorrow. I don't know if anybody talked to Chris about that or not.
No, but it's supposed to rain and I can't open the, it's the parking lot that's killing us. It's in.
All right, so let me, may I handle that? Let me see if I can make some calls with see if I can get something down
Wrong
there.
direction to start with, so the taper on the parking lot all drives the water into the parking lot, not to the drainage.
And Andy Breeze-
And that was done when it was ever put together however many years ago.
And I know that, we have a gentleman coming
Gotta
next
put-
week to the selectmen's meeting to give us a lot of history behind the field and maybe he can,
Yep.
he can shine some light on that. And it may have to be dug up and fixed properly the right way, but I think the goal is to get you through baseball right now because by soccer it should be dried up, right?
It would be nice to be able to use it.
Even if we.
and we have to remember that it's not necessarily that it wasn't done right in the first place.
I know.
It's 20 years ago, things settle, it has had zero maintenance.
Thank you.
So I don't want to say it wasn't done properly, because we don't know that.
You are absolutely correct, I should not have said that.
You might be able to grade that off.
Let me see,
too.
let me call
Side.
Langley on my way home and see what I can do about some stone or something
Which
down
is
there.
very,
And the other thing is the retention pond's holding water due to the culvert that's leading out down towards, is that Peacock Road? It's lifted up so nothing can get out.
So did you meet with Dave about all these things?
Yeah, when we were down there putting the fencing around the.
Did he have, what did he have for ideas?
Well, we gotta take out that corner, we gotta clean out the spillways so it can get down into the retention pond. That whole retention pond that has to be cleared out around, like no bushes, no trees or anything like that.
And when is, so when's baseball season end?
June 15th.
Well, we're budgeted to clear that out for next year if it gets approved, right?
I would like to know from Dave if there's a short-term fix to get us through baseball, and then next year,
think it's some
we can do the
crushed stone or
major stuff, you know what I mean?
Wouldn't it?
Like what we had talked
I
about.
would think we're at this point, it's the
Yeah.
parking
Get
lot,
stuck.
not
Yeah.
the field. I think
It's the
crushed
parking
stone
lot.
or gravel or whatever
I
you
would think
call
that
it
some
would
stone would be
go a
good or
long
something?
way.
Crushed stone?
Anyone been on the field? Is the field still all
I
wet?
haven't been up there for 2
He went up
weeks.
a
Field's
couple weeks
okay.
ago and it was
Two weeks ago I
nasty.
went up and there was standing water on the field still, not.
On the field?
On the field,
Yeah.
yeah.
John,
But I have
didn't you
not
go up?
been in 2
Was it you
weeks.
that I was talking to, or was
I
it?
was up a week ago, I was up.
Yeah,
Andy
Chris,
Brazier's been up there working the.
So there hasn't, have there been any practices out there?
No.
we've not used it at all. So we've been sharing with the school, we've been having like 3 teams on the field at once, practicing. It's been, like, we have really had to compromise a lot with no field, and the frustration of it, like, we gotta do something. Like, we can't control Mother Nature, we all know that. But I just feel, there has to be a something.
I will call Dave, I also have to double check with Michelle.
Oh, yeah, the school has been phenomenal. They really have.
So let me see if I can deal with that on my way home tonight.
Spare time.
Spare time. All right, so the field, that's where we kind of left off, the frustration. I know I stopped you, but I have to, from my brain, I have to be able to hear what that one issue is, try to deal with that, and then go on to the next one,
So when we were, last fall, we were trying to get some policies and stuff in place, and you remember that we had formed some subcommittees, and then there was some miscommunication about the purpose of them and what they'd be doing and their function, but in leading up to that, one of the things that we as a committee had kind of tasked ourselves with was coming up, like, with running a sport, what is involved? Like, every single thing, whether it's scheduling, putting teams together, collecting registrations, ordering the medals, putting the ceremony, everything, every single thing. And then, like, the liaison and the director sit down and be like, okay, I've got this, you're doing pictures, you're doing this, because nobody expects Chris for a stipend of $2,000 a year to do every single thing. But they can't, the problem is you both assume the other one's doing it, and that's where we've been going wrong. I mean, we haven't ordered medals for baseball, that hasn't been done. You know, there's things, you know,
a description for the liaison as well?
absolutely, and kind of dividing those responsibilities a little bit.
I think that something that may be helpful, I know I use it in my elections a lot, is taking the entire calendar year and just kind of, you know what I mean, as a committee deciding, okay, this is gonna be the start date for this, you know, just putting it on for the entire year, so then when I put that calendar up and I see it in, you know, October, or not October, it would be like July, you know, absentee ballots for the November election, you know what I mean? It's just, if you put it all, lay it out there for the entire year.
When the registration deadlines are, when the sponsor deadlines are, when you're gonna, what week you order the shirts, what week you do this.
That would help everybody.
Yeah.
And I think you said it perfectly, Carol, when you said that it wasn't that, I mean, you guys assumed that somebody else was ordering the shirt, somebody else assumed that maybe the liaison does it. When I hear Bridget say that she doesn't want to step on any toes, and I believe that, you know what I mean, she wasn't not reaching out for that reason.
But I remember during basketball going to their house, and like, we would just, okay, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna work this out, we're gonna figure this out between her and I, because we're both good people that wanna do it for the right reason. But we clash because we're too much alike. So we sat down and we went over everything, like, you're gonna do this, I'm gonna do that.
But you initiated that, didn't you?
I did, because I'm like that.
Right, and that's how I am. So you initiated, so now we have Lisa and Bridget, or Lisa and Chris, you know what I mean? If somebody doesn't initiate that meeting and get that going, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I initiate always, like, for help. That's why I said you and Lisa are two different people.
Yeah, no, and Lisa agreed that you asked her, that you.
Yeah, you asked me if I needed help with copies or this or that or any of that, and
Nobody's doubting that.
Yeah, no, we talked about that, that was fine. Where my issue came in was when all of this happened. It was, it all was brought up because a sponsor called you. And I have to say, shirts hadn't been ordered. How did the sponsor even know anything about this? That came from somebody on this committee.
Right.
That was an ambush attack.
Well, it definitely.
No, you can say what you want.
Okay.
It was an ambush attack from somebody on this committee saying, oh, you think you're gonna order shirts? Good luck.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that was.
Absolutely, it didn't happen anywhere like that, and it absolutely didn't happen like that, and
How did it happen then, Jen?
I'm not gonna get into that details, because you have a candidate sitting on this committee that's running for selectman, that it is part of the conversation, and I'm not doing that to any candidate. I'm not doing it, I'm not having that conversation, but when I tell you, no, my turn, finish.
Okay.
When I tell you that was not an ambush, it absolutely was not. This rec committee, as a whole, agreed to accept sponsors and said they were gonna do A, B, or C. The person that came to me was actually looking out for somebody, because they didn't want the misappropriation of funds words to get out there when the sponsors weren't done. When I tell you I spoke to a sponsor, that's the truth.
Oh, I believe you spoke to a sponsor.
It was not an ambush.
To a sponsor.
There was a lot more to it,
But I also believe
but.
that somebody else called that sponsor and said, hey, just so you know, your name's not gonna be on that shirt. And then my other issue is.
But if they did, Lisa, you should be saying thank you.
Okay, so my other issue,
Because
my
that
other issue issue is,
happen.
I need to say this out loud for everybody to hear. Before I made the call to order those shirts without sponsors' names, I spoke to Bridget, I spoke to Chris, I spoke to Lori, and I spoke to Carol. I didn't speak to John. I didn't. But I did speak to those people on this board
what did
and
they
said,
say?
this is what we're gonna do. We don't have money. And they said, well, we gotta do what we gotta do.
Is that true?
She sent a text with the shirts, and that's what I got, yeah, like, I said, what the F, in the text, I'm not gonna lie, because.
And I said, no, we're gonna put the names on the hats, because we can do that cheap. And she said, okay, I wanted to make sure the names were somewhere.
And I suggested, when she told me, I said, well, Carol told me because she wanted me to go help her with the shirts, and I said, well, we'll bring it up at the next rec meeting and see if we can adjust it with banners or some other way.
And I
the
did
money,
send-
And then reach out to them and tell them that we'll either give
And I
them some
did-
money back, or if they respect, that, and just because of the fact that we couldn't get the shirts, and
And I did send an email to John saying, look, this is what happened, this is what I did, and this is what I think we could do moving forward. We could offer money back, or we could put a big banner, blah, 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 and then, hi. So I did speak to Bridget, I did speak to Chris, I
That's good
spoke to at least
information.
4 people on the committee before I made the decision fully. to
Yeah, and
order.
I haven't, nor this board, no one's questioned your decision to do that. I have stood behind that decision that you made from the very beginning, and I've said that publicly many times. It wasn't about that. It was about that the town of Acton said they were going to do this, and it's my job
Yeah,
to
it
make
was-
sure that that happened. Believe it or
was-
not, for the protection of everybody on this committee, including Board of Selectmen, that was not, it did not happen the way it did. And I think that Carol is following and understands that there is more to this. And it did not happen that way at all, I assure you.
And
I don't play those games.
We keep talking about how it was a decision made by the board, and I just want to make sure that everyone knows I didn't just willy-nilly do it, like it still feels like it, people are saying, you went and did this because you're the liaison and you thought you could do this, but I did speak to 4 other people before I did.
And just so you know, even if those people, the director included, did, agreed, just like you said, and they're shaking their head, yes, the selectmen still would have stepped in and ordered the shirts, because that's what the form said, and that's what the town of Acton was already entitled to. I'm just saying.
That's fantastic.
So they wouldn't have been able to trump that anyways.
I get that, but I don't want people to act like they didn't know anything about it until.
and I appreciate hearing that.
You guys stepped in.
Good information to have.
And with that being said, I know Carol and her dad came up with the check because I happened to be here, so
And
can they have the money back?
I specifically told him that the money wasn't
I
needed.
know you did.
I specifically told him not to. I tried to get him. to
I
keep the
was
check.
really mad, and I said, if you leave without leaving that check there, you have no place to go home to. Like, you do not let them say no.
There was enough.
It doesn't matter, I'm still the boss.
There was enough sponsor money to cover the shirts and the hats. If the account, I would, you know what I mean? I told him over and over not to leave it. I tried not to accept it from him, but
So,
Especially with the fact that we're gonna be using those shirts next year.
I would give it back to him in a second. I mean, what I would have to do is, at this point, as far as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, the only expenditure that we have out, that we have not paid, now listen, this is very important, is Carol's petty cash expenses.
We'll get one.
Has anybody else ordered anything else that I know
Has,
I know, the only other 2 bills that came in
the
were for the
helmets come
porta
from?
john.
Porta potties have been paid for.
what about
The
the
helmets and
mowing?
balls, were they paid for?
Balls were paid for.
The first part of mowing's been.
And the
Yeah,
hats?
the second half of mowing,
Second half of mowing.
That's like 1350, Chris?
1,300?
we have other things
1350,
that we,
and then the
like,
last,
need to order, but we haven't
the last
yet. I don't know if
stipend,
you're
the
looking for
last
that, too.
stipend, 500.
My question is, Carol, if there was enough money in there, so everything is paid, let's assume the porta potties, everything's paid except for the mowing, will he take that refund back?
Yes.
your money, right?
It's my money, yes.
So I'm going on camera to say I'm not giving an answer now, I have to see what has been spent, I have to pay out Carol's expenditure of her
Yeah, the $90, it was 89 something.
the concessions, and it should still be in there, because no other expenditures, because when we paid for the shirts and hats, we already had the money from the sponsors, that was above and beyond. I'll check.
Okay, and if not,
I have
it's
to make
fine,
payments,
you know, but,
Depending on.
Well, we had it budgeted for next year. If it can't come out now, can it come out next year with the shirts?
It
for the
can
new
come out.
uniforms?
It can come out.
If we get approval
Yes.
for the,
Back to the
We're
registration.
gonna wrap this up. My husband is
Yeah.
pacing in the hallway, growling at me.
Back to the registration, shouldn't we just attach the insurance form to the registration when they get
Yes,
sent out?
it should be a
Yeah,
double-sided
should be,
form.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good idea. Make them two-sided.
There's other things, like we need to put shirt sizes on there, we need, stuff like that, so that we don't have to
I really think it
guess.
should be money orders and checks only, but
So-
it's,
Unless they pay at the town hall.
what is it, there's a paper trail for it, so
Right,
they
right.
can't say that they lost the money.
Well, and that's the thing, when people come in here, they'll say, oh, we're just gonna leave this in a rec box. No, you can stand in line, I'm gonna enter it through, I'm gonna give you a receipt, and you leave with the receipt.
So-
Just like every time Bridget's ever come in, she stands at the counter until we, we give her a receipt for everything.
So that, back to what I was talking about earlier, that's another thing that I had a problem with, was the way the registration forms were done. I did pick up 3, because I could have sworn to God Bridget had said she was gonna be in Pennsylvania. I was wrong, I was a week early. So I picked up 3 at the school, brought the money, gave it to Carol, she invoiced it with you, I wrote paid on it. And then when I came up to see you, you handed me a stack of like 7 registrations that you said I picked up that I didn't pick up. And that felt, again, like you saying, oh my
No,
God.
that
there's
actually came from 2 coaches, had nothing to do with Bridget.
But you told me that Bridget gave you that stack of papers
No,
and said
Bridget
Bridget gave me these papers and said that you picked them up. And see, this box isn't filled out. And remember, I looked at them and I said, no, look, this one was.
2 of them were.
Yeah, 2 of them were, and I had written paid on them. And then the other ones, I said, look, this one signed up in February, this one signed up in January. These are not accurate.
Stack of papers that you made photocopies of. And I said, these are the stack. What I did wrong in the beginning was, when we first came to the town hall opening night, when I was taking those from the school, I didn't check the box. What I did was, got the stack of papers and only put 2 people on that did not pay. So that was my fault. My fault was not checking those boxes, and I admitted that to Jen.
Yeah,
And I
there
said,
are many.
"I'm very sorry, I did not check those boxes, but I gave you a manila folder that day," and you're like, and I even wrote with red marker, these 2 people didn't pay. I do agree, like, there were so many hands this time around. I mean, beforehand, I was the only one doing it, and so was Chris. Like, we'd sit out in our living room floor, and they do get very confusing when there's so many more hands. But I am at fault for not checking those boxes and just writing non-pay, here you go, Lisa, see you later. So that's the.
But the non-pays need to shouldn't move forward to the liaison. If the parent can't pay for financial reasons, then you'll contact me and we'll waive them based on the situation. We'll never turn anybody away, but that's part of the process that we have to fix. Non-pays can't make it to the next step. So we flush all the forms through you, and we buy binders for every single sport, because they should, because Lori is right to some extent that she should be able to write her rec notes in her binder and do her own thing. So I'm understanding now. I still don't think that, I still know that she should have turned the book over to Jonathan, but they didn't get new binders, so she had personal stuff in there. So now all of the forms are going here, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're coaching, or you're in the school and someone says, can you give this to Johnny? No. We're just gonna have to lay some things down. So they're gonna be in charge of the binders. They're not putting any registration forms in binders until they're marked paid and we have the insurance waiver and everything done.
Right, but they're not making the teams, correct?
Correct. Well, no.
Director is with the
Correct, no.
liaison.
No, the liaison.
Liaison will still do that, okay.
But that's where that immediate meeting is still gonna have to happen. So you're gonna have a deadline to sign up, and the director is gonna reach out to the liaison and say, listen, I've got 80 kids, everybody's paid, insurances, all this, let's get together and figure out the teams. Or maybe they just copy them all and you figure out the teams from that point. But anybody added from that point can't circumvent, they gotta go back to the beginning.
Yeah, and I think that even with basketball, Bridget was the only one that picked up the forms, because I'm not in the school ever.
I had Chris do pick up sometimes too.
But what I'm saying is, it was a lot, smoother, I think, because the registration deadline, it wasn't like baseball where it was like, we're trying to start and kids are still registering, because we really, Lisa worked immensely hard to get a senior boys team, because we didn't have one last year. You remember, there was like 1 kid that signed up, and we were like, nope, we're gonna get this, and she had the gym teacher working for her, and she was and she got enough boys to field the team. The unfortunate thing is that they only have 2 games all season. And a lot of,
Nobody in Shapley?
Shapley has sent all their kids to
Oh, that's right, to
Massa
Nelson Valley. What about just some parent, I mean, they're senior kids, so they're older, right?
Our
Parent
thought, my
teams?
original thought was to have the boys and the girls play each other a few
because they're the
times,
same age level, and the boys are okay with playing softball.
but that was not well received.
By parents, or?
No,
Well, was that in addition to regular softball, or was that the only teams the girls would play?
so the girls originally had 3 games scheduled, we got rained out, now they're down to 1 scheduled, 1 to be rescheduled, and that's it. And so it would be in addition to.
So the other games they have are with other girl teams? Okay. I mean, and that's, I guess that's a decision that those coaches and you guys have to make. We're not gonna micromanage that point, but, I mean, the parent, do they have any, the boys, they'd be interested in playing the parents, the father's team, just to get them some more experience and?
I don't know if the fathers would be interested. Brian, you wanna?
You'll get out there and play. And-
No, it's just
Yeah,
tough,
most of
you
my
know,
parents do not
and
wanna
we're
do that,
not,
actually.
we're not Little League. Everybody around us is Little League, so you can't get games, you can get scrimmages, and they agree to scrimmages, and then they change their minds, and
No, I know.
it's kind of willy-nilly, and, you know, us as a department need to figure out if we can go Cal Ripken next year, or if we're gonna stay, you know, Acton, then we need to, I don't know what we need to do.
There room in the Melson Valley?
The Massabesic,
Melson Valley is no longer.
Oh,
it's Massabesic.
I gotcha. And what about Sanford? Is Acton allowed to join?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It
So, I mean,
costs a lot more.
It's just the
I
expense.
think it's $70, isn't it?
And the travel.
And the traveling, yeah,
And
5,
it's,
6
I think
nights
the
a week.
practice is like twice a week. and-
No, they practice 5.
Massabesic's 5 nights
Oh,
a
you're-
week.
oh, the older
No, I
kids, but
believe
even.
Between
the
game and
younger kids,
practice.
2 days.
It's a lot.
and-
Our
Anything
families
else
don't
from
want
the-
that.
From the piece of the selectmen, anybody else want to vent or tell us? I mean, we certainly take
Well-
some things, mistakes we've made, and we hear you.
I hate to keep you here any longer than we already have, but my feeling is that you're probably, and this is no fault on anybody here, but I really do think that in another 4 months, you're going to be sat in the same position doing exactly the same thing. Because this is not about communication. That part is, the baseball was misunderstanding, but in general terms, there is just a massive clash of personalities on the committee. There's, you know, I feel I can get on with most people fine, but there is quite clear, I think we can see the elephant in the room, that CW, Laurie and Brian just don't get on with Bridget and Chris, that's fine. You don't have to get on with everybody, but we're on the same committee trying to work together. And I think it's always going to end up like this, that we're always going to end up just banging heads at some point. It's inevitable.
I think it's only fair that if we're gonna call people out by name,
Sure.
that we call out, why is it that Chris and Bridget are always the ones with the shitstorm around them?
Shitstorm around us?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, there's this big clash with us in baseball, and there was a big clash with you and Carol with basketball, and a big clash with you guys and Lori and CW and Brian.
No, I just think it goes way back.
Like, if we're gonna call people out by name and be like, these 3 people don't like them, then
I respond to emails on our group thing, and none of them even acknowledge that we made a comment or anything. I mean, and if you watch the videos, I mean, we're usually sitting there like, we're here, and we're not included. They don't want us on the committee, and it's quite obvious.
I think that's fair. Laurie, you have a voice on this committee as much as anybody else has. I've allowed everybody to speak when I've been here chairing it. I've never allowed anybody to speak over anybody else. I mean, Carol certainly, you know, is not silent.
No,
That's right. Carol probably,
No,
Dennis
John
get most of the talking.
John is by far the perfect choice for the chair, because he's the most neutral out of all of us, you know?
You are the most neutral, and actually, I told them that I thought you should be the chair, actually, behind closed doors, so, a while ago.
Actually, quite a few of us.
But
Sure, no, I'm not disputing, I'm not saying there's anything, well, you just can't get on with everybody. It's, you know, that's life. You're not going to all get on with all
I'm gonna get
people.
along with everyone.
And
but-
it's
So the
impossible.
question is, I guess the question that you have to ask yourself as rec committee members is, you know, can you get past that? You know,
I mean, we continue to get past it.
But I guess what Jonathan's saying, there's concerns, does anybody agree with what Jonathan's saying, that in 4 months,
I
we're gonna
agree
be?
with that, but can I say something? Because I want to say that Chris and I do a lot, and I know that does not go unnoticed to the community, but I'm upset as his wife that we only get picked out for negative when we're only trying our hardest. And Lisa, you said tonight that you think you were sabotaged and stuff like that. So I think you're overthinking on your end too, because I think you're an amazing person, and I feel like maybe that's directed toward me, that maybe I sabotaged you. I did not. With the forms, everything, I think that was all miscommunication. But, I mean, we're all trying here with our kids and everything, and I'm over here shaking because...
And I'll be the first one to admit, I am a pessimist. And I've told Chris that myself. If you say this, I read this. I am a pessimist. That's why, how many times have I called you, Chris? Like, what did you just say in that text message? You read it wrong. Okay, all right, good. But there are times when you kind of have to look at it like miscommunication, 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 like you're beating a dead horse. How many times can we not realize it ain't working? You know, it's not working, fix it. It's not miscommunication anymore. At this point, are we moving on to blatant, like, disrespect for each other? Is that where we are? It can't always be blamed on miscommunication. I'll take responsibility for it too, because I'm just as quick to shoot out a text message that could be read wrong.
And this is why I wanted to bring it up, because there's no point in us going around in circles and dragging you guys out again in another 4 months to do the same thing.
Maybe the committee does anybody think the committee's too big, or do you think it's just it's not a good fit of people?
Hell of a hard time to make a meeting date.
I think you're all sensitive in a different type of way.
Just gotta grab a water.
You're both feeling, each side's, I can feel the tension. You're feeling attacked, and from the outside, I'm like, why would you feel attacked at that? Like, why are your defenses up? Let them down.
And there really is
Work
more
together, it's for the
story.
kids. I feel like,
I think part of it is,
if I read these emails and texts, I'd be like, so what are you upset about?
You might not.
I don't think so.
I forwarded her, I mean, I try to forward them to the board so they can see them.
There's no
Some of them,
direction now
some of
either.
them.
Like, when someone's trying to give direction, and even Chris has lost his voice, I think, if I, like, step in, like, I agree, like, as his wife, like, I stepped up a lot as a voice for him. Like, I do step up for my husband, we're a team, just like you and your sister are a team, you know? And I always get just the negative, and it sucks. You know, like, nobody on that half is ever gonna like the Whitmans. I can tell you that much. Sorry.
I don't think that that's what it is, though. I mean, you guys know.
Because I'm shaking so hard. You guys are all great, but I really want
I mean, I've been able to move past and work very well with the Whitmans many times. We worked really hard, John, Chris, Bridget, and I, on the ice rink, and we've worked together. I've put all and we all have put those personal differences aside many times, and I feel like we can continue to do that. I don't know. I don't think that it's an impossible situation. I think the impossible situation, I've been on the committee since October, and we have no more guidelines than we had in October. Like, we're just like, all like, pour our hearts and souls into this rec, every single one of us. You know, I mean, a lot of work, whether it's Chris and Bridget, John. I mean, look at the work John did on the ice rink, and I know, like, Chris has been up to that field 20 times during baseball trying to figure out what the heck to do with it, you know? And I know what Lisa and I do. I know what everybody does. We all pour our hearts and souls into it, and when you don't have any guidance and you don't have any, like, okay, you're doing this, I'm doing this, and everybody's busy. I mean, we all are stretched thin, and so it's like we're all trying to cram all this stuff in, and we're all spinning our wheels, and we're all working against each other, and we just, if this committee is ever, if this department's ever gonna succeed, and succeed long-term, things have to get laid out. It has to be written out with some policies and procedures and guidelines and job descriptions and position descriptions, and, I mean, I don't think anybody expects Chris Whitman to completely run the rec for $2,000 a year. That's just not realistic, you know? But I just think that it's just so unclear, and that's why there's so many hard feelings. That's why there's so much miscommunication. I hate emails and texts. You know, like when I got John's email and I was so upset. I know John Botel is not a mean-spirited person. You know, I know that.
My wife.
You know? I also know in being married to an immigrant that a lot of it's cultural. You know, a lot of the terms he used and the way he did it, that is from where he's from, you know?
Similar to me sending an email. Some people are just, you know,
Yeah.
they're just behaving right. But
I'm the kind of person that will go and talk to him,
Right.
and go and talk to Chris, and go and talk to Bridget, you know?
Whereas
not
Lisa or
everybody's
Rick,
like that.
Take it, I mean, I get both sides as well. You know what I mean? Because, I mean, I hate to say, that's my marriage in a complete nutshell. I mean, you've got one person that's, you know, and then you got the other person that's just like, you know, and they just wait. It's just different people, you know what I mean? But I just, we need to finish this rec director, we need to work on the field and get through baseball. And we need to get some policies and procedures in place. And that's something that this board can help you with. We can have some, if you told me the first 3 types of policies that you'd like to address. So we know we have the job description, that's something, he reports to the Board of
I
Selectmen.
think that'll help a lot, because I think the other thing is that when it all changed in whenever it was, September last year, I mean, Chris spoke to me, and he was kind of like, well, what do I do now? And I was like, well, you kind of just fetch and carry a few bits and pieces here and there. That's really it, because the liaison does the rest. So, and I think that it was, I'm not saying everybody, but I mean, certainly you could look at what he was doing and think, well, what is he doing?
Right.
Because he didn't really have that much to do, but it's right, it'll help a lot.
Well, and there's a lot behind the scenes that we don't see, just like Carol, but at the
100%.
same time, there's things, you know, that we're not realizing the liaison. So that we can try to wrap this up and be on somewhat of good terms. So if we have this job description done before the next meeting, what policies do you want to see first? What will be most helpful to this committee? What policies? I mean, let's just pick the top 3 policies that we think would be the most, or that would be the most helpful. I mean, do we want to use soccer as an example and list out the steps of the liaison?
I have a list that I did of like all the tasks for running, because you know, it's kind of what I used to do in my HR days. So I have all the tasks of running a sports program laid out, from ordering equipment to forming team, like every single one.
Order, like an order?
It was just a list.
Okay, just a list,
You know,
okay,
and
yep.
so if we could kind of divvy that list up between a liaison and a director.
Yep.
So, because as the liaison, you both think the other one's doing it. You
So if
really
we
do.
have a checklist and we're able to put in there, director liaison, and go through it at a meeting, you know, and so you have the responsible person.
Yeah.
And then you have a timeline.
Yeah.
So that everybody's got the same form in front of them, and we're marking it off, and we're putting that date in there, so there's no questions after the fact.
Yeah,
Everybody
and then
knows
I
and
think the other
understands.
helpful thing, because we are wrapping up our year, you know, is maybe to lay out that calendar and have us, you know, put the dates to it at our next meeting. You know, because that's huge.
That would be 2019, 2020.
Yeah,
calendar
for the
all the way
new
down.
fiscal year,
Makes sense.
because it really should go fiscal year, school year, they kind of run the same, so.
What is left that needs to happen for baseball? So we know, so Chris.
Medals, I think.
Lisa is going to reach out to you, and she's going to tell you exactly what needs to be ordered for medals, trophies, whatever she decides.
Yeah,
That's
but I
gonna
just got a
happen.
note.
You know how much
They're on
money you have to
sale right
spend.
now, So.
Yeah, medals are on sale.
So you're gonna reach out to Chris? Chris, within the I mean, it's, you know, as soon as she reaches out to you, you reach out to Michelle or I, and we'll get that ordered. So that will take care of that. We'd rather have them early, right? So,
Especially they're on sale.
The only other
back to
thing,
you in a day or so, Lisa, you call me.
the only other thing, if we look at the calendar, I don't know if we're meeting again before the closing ceremonies
Which is
on June
when, Drew?
15th, and we meet the third Wednesday.
So what do you
So I don't
need, what
think
else do you
that's-
need for your closing ceremonies for baseball, Lisa?
We need, well,
You need your
I
medals.
think it'll depend on if we're at the field or not.
Okay.
If we're not at our field, it probably won't be as big of a ceremony as,
But do you guys like allocate do you have X amount of dollars to spend on closing ceremonies? You don't know. That's part of our plan. Because that, you know, those are the things the liaison should have in the beginning. She knows she's gotta order, you know, she has to get with the director and order A, B, and C, but then she also knows what her spending is, because you can't have closing ceremony without some sort of money.
Well, we all decided that we weren't doing pizza anymore, we're just gonna do a cake and the medals and potluck, right, on these things.
We've kind of taken it a sport by sport, really.
I thought that was the decision for every ongoing, so we weren't gonna be.
Well, that was for next year, we didn't put any money for pizza in the budget.
Right, yeah.
But just doing a cake and.
Yeah.
ever do a potluck.
I just know that when I did the I'm gonna go backwards a little. When I did the basketball closing ceremonies, I was raked across the coals for not doing the will of the committee, that I just planned it myself. I don't want that again for baseball.
And, okay, yeah, and at some point, I mean, those are, unfortunately, we're gonna have to delegate some of this to the liaison.
Yeah.
Lisa ought to be able to plan her own closing
That's right.
ceremonies. And quite honestly, and I'm gonna say this as politely as possible, if other committee members are starting to rake her across the coals for planning that, when that's her duty, then that's what needs to go back to the board, and they need to reconsider not reappointing those people. Because Lisa has to have some authority in this, and she has to have some things to do. So you need to give her X amount of money that she can spend on closing ceremony, and be there to support her when it's done. I don't care if you don't like the cake, I don't care if you don't like the medals, that's what, you know what I mean, we have to delegate and do some of that.
And I
So that
appreciate
she knows
that.
from the beginning, and honestly, I mean, we're never gonna please every parent, we're never gonna, but we have to work together. But the minute committee members start raking people over the coals about decisions they made on their own closing ceremonies, this group of selectmen are gonna step in. And that's where we start talking about not reappointing, because we can't have that.
I thought we already discussed that and agreed upon that a while ago.
I did too.
That we said that the liaison could have, and I thought we voted on it.
Yeah.
In terms of a monetary amount, or just that they were able to do it?
that
No,
they
we
were
would
able to
discuss
do
it, if we all agreed upon it, we gave it,
Yeah, I'm sure we did,
I thought we
because,
did that.
yeah, I
I
don't.
thought it was already in the minutes at one point.
So baseball is the last sport out of this fiscal year, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. So, tomorrow, we're going to get a list of the monies. Chris and I are going to go over a list of the monies. We're gonna see how close we are to refunding that. We're gonna figure out, make sure the potties are us, the last mowing, and we're gonna see what's left for closing ceremonies.
I have a question.
Roughly, I mean, I'm sorry, real quick. $100 bucks? I mean, what do you
I
think?
don't know how much medals.
Medals were,
No, I'm gonna forget about medals. How much do you think you would need to put on a nice little shingding for the kids? I mean, we're talking freeze pops, a cake, you know, a few balloons,
Yeah.
whatever you decide. Nobody's gonna get
$100 will cover it.
$100, okay. Worst case, Neighbors Helping Neighbors will sponsor that until we start a new fiscal year. Next.
Can I ask the board one question about the money thing? I want to go back to the money thing, because we have a hit-a-thon for baseball that's happening now, you know? And that is going to play into the closing ceremonies too, because there's an
How so?
award,
So there's
there's prizes
awards
for
the
levels and
hit-a-thon.
stuff.
So are people paying to be in this hit-a-thon?
No, they're getting sponsors.
Yeah, the whole thing is each kid gets a paper, they go try and get as many sponsors as they can. You can sponsor them so much per foot or one flat rate. Then at a practice, they get 4 hits, measure the longest hit, take down the information, collect the money. And then there's a prize for most money raised, longest hit, and then there's a participation prize, meaning every kid that raises at least $25 gets put in a hat and somebody gets drawn for the prize.
Just as a policy issue. who
Yeah,
handles
so
that
that's what I'm
money?
saying, with the money.
Hasn't come in yet.
Because we had originally planned for the kids to hand those forms of money into their coaches, and then their coaches.
And,
give it to
and we
Lisa.
may have to just make some exceptions to get through baseball. I mean, we're not looking to change the world and stop everything tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're gonna get.
But I just want to make sure we're okay to do that.
Right, yeah, I mean, if that's what you've agreed as a team, the board's not gonna trump that. We're just gonna get back to like we did with the concessions. You got 2 people, you know, hey, Lisa, or, you know, hey, whoever's next to you, the closest rec member, make it a rec member. This is what I collected today, this is what I'll turn over to Chris. So that's just a second person. That's
really-
clean for everybody.
I really think that, before your next sport comes up too, when you send out all the paperwork, there should be a paper there that you need to volunteer once on your child's team.
Yeah.
If not, I don't know what you do, whether you charge them extra.
Well, that's what we wanted to do. We talked about that at the beginning of the year.
That's what Wakefield, you know, like I said, I've been looking at different sites, you know, how they try to, you know, and I'm not, I don't know.
Chris and I had that idea at the beginning of the year.
Let's get through baseball, we have a little time.
Yeah.
So
That's what I'm talking
Jonathan,
about.
just real quick, so if Chris and I and Lisa can work on the baseball thing and we'll find the money and sort it out and we'll get that reimbursed. And let me see what I can do about the field. What do you, I mean, when can you possibly, because so now it's 9:15, so we're not gonna move on to the agenda. I mean, unless there is something, can we either
In
plan
all
on
honesty,
meeting
I'd just
again?
like to call another meeting as soon as we possibly can to go through what we need to go through for Pride Day, because we've got effectively 2 months now.
All
Yeah.
right,
Crap.
so, what day is best for you guys? Thursdays, is that what you like?
Wednesdays is our usual, right, Chris? Is that what works for your family?
Yeah,
Wednesday?
yeah, Wednesday.
So how about the 29th? That's 2 weeks.
Wait a minute,
Yeah,
do we
I'm
have some
back.
kind of candidates now?
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's do it then.
Let's do it on that
Candidates night.
June 5th, that's a Wednesday.
I can do
June 5th? June 5th? All right, June 5th. So I'm gonna put you down June 5th at 6 o'clock.
Yes,
six?
please. That way, if it's 2 hours long, we're still out by 8.
So just so we're all clear, leaving this with baseball, I'm only gonna communicate what, these last few things with Lisa and Chris. I will help, we're gonna close out, get these things ordered, see what I can do with the gravel. We'll work with Chris directly and just the board, because my goal is to take that out of a different account where it's town property, so it doesn't affect you guys. And then what was the other thing we had to do? And then we'll start working on those couple of policies, and we'll bring the drafts to you. The board's not gonna approve anything. You know, the policies they're approving regarding money and stuff are town-wide. These are auditor recommendations, they're not because of the rec committee. It's, you know what I mean, they're
Did you have any
town-wide.
luck moving the fund we got hit for the opening up of the plowing?
Not on the first one, no. They haven't charged you anything all year for plowing. They charged the first time because that was an extra expense because of the ice rink and not something that the roads were budgeted on, so that one you're stuck with.
Okay.
But they're not charging you any of the rest of the year, and you'll be fine.
So I think the issue arose was that we thought, and I don't know who said what to who at where, I don't know the details of that, but I think the issue was that we felt that they already knew that they should be plowing it, and they didn't, and we had 2 big storms, which made them then have to open it up.
With the
If they'd
loader.
plowed it regularly, it wouldn't have needed opening up.
So
And that's where it
in
came
a
from.
shift too.
Might have been in between the shifts, but I don't.
Yeah, I think it was, I think that was the issue.
You know, so.
And I don't know that, I mean, any of the lines at this point, I mean, you guys, there's nothing specific that this committee needs, short of the baseball stuff we've talked about, right? We're not looking for, I mean, let's get through that, we can, I mean, the board can reconsider it, but that's really, we should be budgeting it out of, or paying it out of where it, you know, where it was. It was a special project, so, that was the thought of the treasurer anyways.
Can I ask one thing about the, what are we calling it now, the thing in July?
Pride Day?
Pride Day. We talked about getting, people to come in for vendors.
Yeah.
Can I start on that
Sure.
at least?
Yeah, I think we can now that the insurance.
You're gonna be the
is in.
liaison to the.
Vendor.
Vendor tables.
Vendor tables, yeah. So,
We need to get a letter or something and say how many.
And I think what we-
times and
I need to get in there
stuff.
and
We have
measure to
no
see how many
times.
ta-
until we get some policies and procedures in place, why don't you just, when you draft a letter that the committee agrees to, just send me a quick email, and let me just proof it and look at it.
Okay, so draft it, give it to the,
Well, draft it.
email it to the committee.
Once
and
the
email
committee
it
is
to you.
happy with it, just let me take a quick peek before it leaves.
But what about times and stuff? I guess we haven't discussed anything.
And you don't think,
Times.
Other than
June
the
5th,
20.
if you wait till that meeting, that's not, you wanna get the letter out before.
I think we
Yeah, I'd
should
like
as soon
to
as
try to get
possible.
vendors in there, you know.
Well, let me get up to the field later this, hopefully tomorrow, maybe at the weekend.
So you just need to know what time, what time Pride Day is gonna start and end? Is that essentially all you
I
need?
guess, pretty much.
I mean, you're gonna, knowing what time it starts and ends and knowing how much the vendor table space is gonna be, you should be able to draft a letter, so why don't you just?
Right.
Why don't you just-
We talked about price.
So
of
we're
the
looking
tables, but we
9
never
to, 9 to
agreed it.
3, 9 to 4, 8 to 3, what do you think?
We're not starting
They need
before
times.
What time's for
9 to
opening?
3?
Is usually the
Nine.
norm for
9 to 3.
vendors.
Okay, so
That's-
Pride Day will be from 9 to 3. She wants to be able to start drafting the
Sure.
letter, so
Yeah.
9 to 3, Lori, that day.
And I think we set a standard, what do we say, 15 by 15?
$15 is
No,
I mean the
15 by
space.
15 space.
12 by 12.
12 by 12.
12 by 12 is how, and that's bring your own table? 12 by 12?
Yeah, and,
Definitely.
And a
Top up
tent.
if
And how
we
much
need-
is that?
we talked about either 25 or 30, and we never made a decision.
I mean,
25.
25, yeah, I wouldn't go much higher than that. You've got Community Day.
Well, yeah, we
Other
talked
places.
about, like, Applefest is 50, we don't wanna go that high.
It's 50 for 2 days.
Is it? Okay, so that would
Community
be
Day is
25.
20, so 25 is good, so why don't you do 25?
Okay.
And they can mail, you know, payments with their.
To you?
Yeah, to the town,
Okay.
we'll put them in there, and just make like a perforated form, you know, with the information that you'd want back, and I can help you.
And you have the list of
draft
all
it up.
the vendors in town, right?
I have a list of all the businesses and stuff, and certainly can help
I
with
grabbed
that.
one of those the other day, actually.
Draft a letter, let's send it out via email, we'll look at
I do want to say
it.
one thing. What you said about all our personalities is totally different. I do agree with that.
Sure.
But we all have to remember, this is not about us.
No, I 100% agree.
And we just need to suck it up and just get over it and just do it for the kids, so. if we're not gonna do that, then that's not gonna help the kids, so. And I'm really getting tired of all that. Anyway, so, be honest with you.
I couldn't agree more.
And I'd like to say happy birthday to Lisa.
That's right.
Today's your birthday?
Yes, it is.
Oh, my
She does
God.
weird things on her birthday.
Happy birthday. I'm so sorry you spent the last 2 hours here. You adjourned?
Yes. So how do you